Hello everyone, I'm Mike Connors, and welcome to How It Ticks, the go-to podcast for anyone with a spark of curiosity about the inner workings of Switzerland. Hosted by yours truly, an Australian expat with a deep curiosity, How It Ticks offers a platform where listeners are invited to explore the vast landscape of Swiss culture, business, innovation, and tradition. Each episode features a one-on-one interview with experts and thought leaders from various fields, providing a panoramic view of what makes Switzerland tick. If you are like me and you enjoy listening to successful people share their insights, this podcast is for you. In this episode, I had the chance to chat with Markus, media spokesperson from Switzerland Tourism, where I got a behind-the-scenes look at how Switzerland is marketed to the world. We dive into the different strategies and ad campaigns tailored for tourists from various regions and how the demographic of visitors are shifting. We also explore what Gen Z and younger travellers prioritise when visiting Switzerland and how this shapes the tourism industry. Markus shared insights on current tourism trends and the strategic efforts to promote lesser-known regions beyond popular spots like Interlaken and Zermatt. We talk about how Switzerland selects its public figures as ambassadors to market the country globally and the iconic ad campaign featuring Roger Federer and Hollywood celebrities. If you enjoy the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the show. It really helps the channel grow. Now, please enjoy my conversation with Markus. Markus, thank you very much for joining me today. How are you?
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me. I'm fine. I'm fine. Nice weather outside. I'm looking forward to this.
I watched the new ad campaign or the new commercial that came out a week ago or 2 weeks ago with Roger Federer and Mads Mikkelsen. And I thought, what goes into these commercials? I feel like they're becoming quite iconic. I was checking before this podcast and a couple of the older ones with Anne Hathaway and Robert De Niro have over 100 million views now. What goes into a campaign like this?
Definitely a lot of work. Also some money. Not just for the actors. One would think the actors are very, very expensive. They're actually not all that expensive. Can't obviously not talk about the numbers, as those are like confidentiality contracts. But playing them out, these advertisings on YouTube and social media, that's where a lot of the budget goes. And it's a lot of work, like not just like dealing with the persons and their managements and the film set things, the planning. And we're pretty proud on these commercials, actually, because I think they're funny. They reach an audience that likes them, and so we'll prepare extra diligently that they make sure they're good at the end. So there's a lot of work.
You're lucky that you have one of the most beloved sports players of all time. Happy to be involved. That's got to make things a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's pretty much a no-brainer to work with Roger Federer, which is our only global ambassador that we have. We have those like market ambassadors, but Roger Federer is the only person we consistently work with on the global level. Yeah.
Mm. Can you tell me a little bit about the types of tourists that visit Switzerland and whether the demographic has changed over the years?
Yeah, I'll try to. First of all, there's not the one typical guest, of course, but we do have segments naturally. So first of all, like by origin, we differentiate between three different types of markets. The domestic market, so like most people that visit Switzerland come from Switzerland, that just travel their own country. That's about half at the moment. And then we have like the short haul markets. That's basically Europe, especially neighboring countries like Germany, France, Italy, Austria. And we have the long haul markets that would then be what you expect them to be, of course. Australia, of course, Asia, the Americas. We do not currently work, are not operational in Africa. but yeah, those are like the market distributions. And there are differences, of course, because especially the closer markets, there we have very loyal guests that come often and come repeatedly. Maybe even their parents came to Switzerland yearly. So we did a study, or we doing this study regularly, but it's just basically asking people on the street different questions. And one question is, how many times have you visited Switzerland before? And it's like 2/3 of people answered that they've visited Switzerland more than 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
And about 16% are visiting Switzerland for the first time. If you just ask people on the street, how many times have you visited Switzerland? It's 16% that are visiting.
When you're saying asking these people on the street, is this in China, the US, Australia? Like where?
No, this is in Switzerland. We are asking
tourists in Switzerland. Sorry,
Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
Or also we have some like data. I think that we get, so we can ask them afterwards. But it's like asking people in Switzerland why they came here,
Mm-hmm.
and like the likes, and yeah, obviously people from long haul markets don't visit as often. Like when you travel from the US, most of them don't come every year. So there's a differentiation, and we have like further segmentations by type of travelers. I don't know how much you're interested in numbers, but I can maybe say that like in these segmentations, there's like there are 3 types, like the nature lover, the snow sports enthusiast, and the outdoor enthusiast, that make up more than 60% of the guests. Then we have like very different segments, like the city breaker or the spa guest or luxury travelers, but they're rather small segments.
Yeah, it's interesting how you categorize the different types of tourists. And I wanted to ask you, when you said that what do you mean by being operational? So you said you're not particularly operational in Africa. When you say operational, do you mean that there are actual local campaigns in each of these regions?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I have to kind of explain how we work as Switzerland Tourism. So we are the NTO of Switzerland, which means the National Tourism Organizations. That's a corporation under public law in this case. We are not a governmental office. We are a company, but owned by the state. And we are purely a marketing organization. So our job is to promote like domestic and international tourism demand for Switzerland. We don't make tourism policy. We don't shape tourism product-wise. We don't develop tourism products. We just market tourism in Switzerland. Of course, we shape the face of Switzerland with our brand campaigns. But yeah, we have this like 280 people in total that work. I think about half of them work in our headquarters in Zurich, and the other half works in the markets. We have 36 offices in 23 markets, which are basically not entirely grouped, but basically just countries. So like the US is a market, Australia is a market, and there we have offices. And we don't currently have an office in an African country.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean by not being operational. Of course, you can see the YouTube ads in South Africa, but we are not like targeting the campaigns in markets we are not present.
Do you have specific ad campaigns for each of these markets?
We have like these global campaigns. Like the Roger Federer campaign is our biggest campaign, like at least this year, and that's global. What kind of global? We just, there are target marketings. This was an autumn campaign this time, and it was just like we're playing it like we are buying coverage in mostly Europe, with this campaign.
Mm,
But the markets then also work with the campaign, and they maybe do events. They do public relations work with local media based on Roger Federer and this campaign, and such things. We don't exactly have like big advertising campaigns like spots individually for the markets. What the markets do is more like the very hands-on work in the markets, because they know the country they're in, and they talk to tour operators, they talk to local media, they invite content creators to Switzerland. That's what the markets do basically.
I see. And what are some of the trends in tourism to Switzerland in the past few years? Have you seen changes in terms of what people are looking for, or the direction that Switzerland's going in terms of how they market themselves, or even the sort of guests they're looking to attract? Is it changing over the past, say, decade?
There are always changes. It's a bit difficult to say at the moment because there was COVID, and COVID hit the tourism industry very hard, as you can imagine, with the lockdowns. I mean, like from one day to the other, like it was just ended. Kind of tourism just ended for some time, and there have been lots of effects, not just for the worse, also partly for there have been positive effects. But we are just now finding out which effects are lasting and what kind of bounces back. So it's a bit hard to say what's really a trend and what was an influence of COVID. One trend, obviously, there are trends that are influenced by COVID, like people from Switzerland kind of rediscovered their own country. So people from Switzerland, residents, kind of helped us compensate the long haul markets that just fell away during COVID, and it's kind of bouncing back, but there's still a lot of Swiss people still traveling Switzerland more than before COVID. And well, activity-wise, camping is a trend with like social media trends, obviously, like van life and glamping and the likes on official campsites, but also especially camping in the wild seems to be a thing at the moment. Outdoor sports are trending. E-bike from a supplier side, with lots of destinations now offering a vast array of e-bike trails. Hiking has always been a big thing in Switzerland, with I think about 60% of people that say they do hike regularly, but it's trending even more for years now, and COVID also helped push it even higher. I think it's a rather young demographic that kind of discovered hiking now and keeps hiking. So like Gen Z is interestingly hiking in Switzerland.
I wonder also if, especially for a younger generation, if hiking and wild camping is something which has come out of just what is also feasible money-wise. It being such an expensive country, if tourists from outside of Switzerland want to visit, it's probably one of the things you hear often is like, boy, oh boy, this place is expensive. So these are, I guess, things which you can do for very low cost.
Yeah, there are ways to save money in Switzerland, of course. But there's also trends like that are expensive, like this van life trend. Of course, well, you don't have to buy hotels, but like having a camper van in itself is quite an expensive thing. So, I mean, obviously we don't attract all demographics alike. So when you come to Switzerland, visit Switzerland, like people with money are somewhat overrepresented. Let's put it like this.
How has the growing number of tourists from emerging markets like China, India, influenced tourism strategies in Switzerland? Has it influenced it?
Actually, it kind of started with a little misconception because China and India, they have been growth markets until 2019. But actually, they still are growth markets, but they took quite a hit during COVID, and both of them, and especially China, haven't bounced back or haven't fully recovered yet. So we're seeing less people from China actually at the moment than in 2019. Actually, it's the US market that's growing the most, with it being our most important long haul market at the moment. And it's even about to overtake Germany as the most important foreign market overall. So the US guests are coming in large numbers at the moment. And I think it changes the work in the specific market, but it doesn't change exactly global strategies because there are always changes in markets. Germany and Japan, for example, are markets with rather declining numbers of visitors. So at the same time, the US is growing and they kind of compensate each other. But of course, the people in the market have to adapt. They have to tap like new generations and have to adapt to changing numbers within their market.
I find it interesting that the US is growing. I mean, all you hear about, well, with English-speaking news at least, all you hear about is how difficult the economy is in the US, but that doesn't seem to translate to people going on holiday. Do you have the current statistics offhand on the number of tourists coming to Switzerland and what the trend is in general, I suppose, over the last few years?
Just on a very global level, it's the numbers are growing. We have like this currency, or not the currency, but our currency of measurement kind of is hotel overnights. That's what we measure on a kind of monthly basis, our kind of life data. And so last year, we had 42 million overnights, which was a new record. I think it was up 5 to 6% year over year, and it surpassed the pre-COVID years, which was like 2019 was our reference year for quite some time because it was the record year, and now we surpassed that. So the numbers are good at the moment.
Does hotel overnight include, what does that include exactly? Is that specifically hotels, or that's also hostels, that's also Airbnbs?
No, it's really just hotels.
Just hotels, okay.
So we are there's a lot we know from market surveys, but there's also a lot we don't know actually, especially on the short-term level, because we really just we actually don't measure anything. Or at least we don't measure the hotel overnights. That's the Federal Bureau of Statistics that measures these hotel overnights. And that's really just hotels. That's not Airbnbs. That's not holiday homes. We don't really have a measure of day trips because when someone from southern Germany visits Switzerland, visits a place, 2 places, 3 places, and just leaves again, they don't appear in our statistics when they don't sleep in a hotel. So that's why we have to do these surveys, market surveys, to get additional data. Yeah.
Which regions? I mean, I could take a guess, but I'm curious what the numbers are. Which regions or cities of Switzerland receive the most visitors?
I just wanted to hand the question back. When you first came to Switzerland, what places did you want to visit?
Good question. So, I think the places. I mean, I consider myself someone who likes to travel quite a lot, and so usually, if I Google the top 5 places to visit, they're usually the places I don't necessarily want to go. And I find it with Switzerland now a bit of a shame in a way, because whenever you Google it, the top 10 Google searches always have the same 5 to 10 places. If I would guess, I'm lucky I have a Swiss wife, so she's able to give me some inside information in terms
Oh,
of. So it's
that,
I'm not a good example of a typical tourist, I guess. But I would guess number one would be Zermatt. Number two would be Interlaken. Maybe you can group Interlaken, Grindelwald, that region together, and then number three, Lucerne. I think those three typically come up the most, and then perhaps after that you've got some of the cities like Zurich, Bern, Geneva. If I had to list it, I would say those six in that order would be where I put my chips.
yeah, that's not too bad. I can't even give you an exact list because it's here again it's pretty difficult because how do you group them? How do you rank them? A big city compared to a small destination, maybe just one mountain railway, then compared to Zermatt, where there's like a whole area of railways. So I can't really tell you like this place gets the most visits, but obviously the places you mentioned are on top. Um, there's actually like fun fact. We have a ranking with the most visited places, but it's just like a lot of is excluded. So the place where you have to pay an entrance fee, the place where we can measure who is coming, with the most visitors is actually the zoo in Zurich.
Interesting.
Um, but all the mountain railways and cable cars are excluded because again, it's hard to measure. Like in the winter, if you have like people with ski tickets that just take the same lift like 20 times. How do you compare that to like one person visiting Lucerne? But it's obviously the Alpine regions and the big cities attract the most people. They're the big Alpine cantons of Bern, Graubünden, Grisons, Wallis. They have a lot of popular tourist destinations. And in terms of cities, I think it's Zurich because it's just a big city. It's also a nice city. I like it. And Lucerne, of course, that are very well visited. And yeah, you asked what makes them attractive, and it's just as you know Switzerland better, you know there are lots of other places that are
Exactly.
nice. But these are the landmark places that are internationally known, and especially the long haul guests. They just visit the first time they visit for these places. They have like people from Asia sometimes dreamed of being on the Jungfrau Joch or seeing the Matterhorn for like their entire life, and you cannot then tell them no, please go to this other place. So when long haul guests come for the first time, they usually do visit those famous places, and our job kind of is to show them the rest in addition.
Yeah, I suppose also it's significantly. I mean, these places when you go to Interlaken, you get there and everything's in English, everything's in Mandarin. It's really geared towards it's really far away international tourists. I think if maybe someone from the US or China has traveled here and they go, somewhere in Graubünden, it might be a little bit more difficult for them to get around. Does Switzerland do anything to market the country and get these people in besides just ad campaigns? What comes to mind in particular, which I guess it was a ad campaign, was when I was looking into for another potential episode, I was looking into the Bollywood scene in Switzerland and how much the film industry is quite big, specifically in Bollywood, because some of these big Bollywood movies like to film in the mountains. And then I also noticed there's an ad campaign specifically with, I guess it's a big Bollywood actor sort of targeted towards India. And I thought that's interesting. It's almost very tailored towards a market because of Bollywood. And I wonder if Switzerland tourism does any other sort of targeted marketing besides just the global campaign.
Yes, that's the work our markets do. They have have to identify what works in their countries and have to choose brand ambassadors. For example, in India, our like I think most important brand ambassador is like a what do you call this, a javelin thrower, like sports person that has some connection to Switzerland and likes Switzerland and is a very outdoorsy kind of guy. He's called Neeraj Chopra. And that works really well in India because he's like a star there. He's a very famous person that people look up to. So we work with him as a brand ambassador. And there's like, apart from campaigns, there's just a lot of like hands-on work because there are two things we call, of course, we have like local social media activities as well. We invite content creators. We use like regional specific platforms like Weibo in China. But two of the most important things we do is we call them key media management and key account management. And it's basically just key media management is just like talk to media journalists and also invite them to Switzerland, travel journalists that then write media articles about Switzerland. We have a lot, basically just thousands of those trips every year. And the other thing is key account management. That's talking to, inviting, sharing knowledge to tour operators. And also like the deals that are involved, like providing them with hotel capacities and things. So that's very hands-on and everyday work we do.
Mm. Do you have any challenges that's Swiss specific when it comes to promoting Switzerland to a global market?
There are always challenges. Good question. I mean, there's always the challenges in terms of change, changing media landscape, digitalizations. We like constantly, but I guess that's true for everyone. Have to adapt to changes. There's also like an intense competition, like and then a market saturation. There's just a lot of places you can visit instead of Switzerland. So yeah, it's hard daily work to convince people, or not just convince people. We just want to grow in quantity. We just like our goal is to have the right people at the right place at the right time. Sounds a bit like marketing speech, but it has a lot to do with like guiding the guest flows also to lesser known places and to lesser known seasons like autumn and spring. So yeah, that's a lot of daily work. Then there's things like economic fluctuations, countries that just like break away for political reasons, like Russia, for example, or you have things like currency, as the Swiss franc, that's very strong, which makes it like, year over year even more expensive for people to come to Switzerland. And those are all like factors that challenge us.
I mean, coming from Australia, the difference between the Swiss franc and the Australian dollar in the past, or since COVID, is really insane. And so I almost feel bad for. Well, I don't feel bad for them, but I'm very conscious when my friends and family come and visit how expensive it has become. It always was expensive, and so I wonder if you can answer this for me. If someone from Australia says, "I want to come see the Alps," and don't worry about the iconic Jungfraujoch or the Matterhorn, I just want to go to the Alps. Why would they come to Switzerland and not go to Italy or Austria, where you could still get the Alps and it's much more affordable? Is that a topic which you think about?
Yeah, I mean, the Alps are the Alps. There are mountains in these other countries, and that's not just true for the Alps. There's like beautiful landscapes in. I don't think I'm allowed to say this, but they're really beautiful landscapes in lots of countries, and we have like to like create this brand that really makes people come to Switzerland, and we do have a certain advantages there because, for example, Switzerland is small. It can is an advantage because everything's close together. We're seeing this trend of people, especially American tourists, just staying in hotels in the big cities, staying in hotels in Zurich, and just making day trips to the Alps, just visiting this mountain today, another mountain tomorrow, and just staying in the cities. And that's what you can do in Switzerland. You can travel to French-speaking part, to like the Mediterranean Ticino part. You can do this all in one day. You can have the cities, you can have lakes, you can even maybe visit. We don't encourage that, but you can visit neighboring countries, just like a day trip. So we have this advantage of things being close together. We have the advantage of having a very good public transportation system, where you can just, and a lot of guests do use this public transportation system. We have an interesting tickets for guests, where you can just like basically use all the transportation system for like you choose, like 3 days. And as you, I'm sure you know, like public transportation in Switzerland just takes you everywhere. That's an advantage, of course. So yeah, we have to play these advantages too in our marketing.
I think the public transport is just absolute killer. How you can live in Zurich, and we don't own a car and don't even intend to own one because you just don't need one. And especially getting to the base of ski slopes very easily with public transport. It still shocks me how good it is. How do you decide which regions to focus on for tourism development? So there's the top 5 or 10 that everybody knows, which come up when you Google best places in Switzerland. But if you want to promote new places, how do you choose them?
It's actually quite the other way around. We have this, we have federal, like, we kind of have two parts that stack on each other. We have this federal mandate that is to promote all regions, all touristic regions. That basically every region in Switzerland is a touristic region. So with the like tax money that we get, we have to promote all these regions. That's kind of the baseline. And then on top, the regions themselves, regions, destinations, and service providers like hotels and railways and such, they can just, it's a partner system. They can basically be our partners and get certain services, marketing services from us. And on top, they can book packages like we can produce like promotional movies for them. We can play their ads in the markets. They can, like, a region comes to us and says, we want more guests from the US, and so the region gets kind of directly connected to the US, our US market office, and then they work for this region over there. So it's less we as Switzerland Tourism decide which regions to promote. It's more like the regions that reach out to us and say, I need promotion, help us. That's kind of the way it works.
And it's very cantonal, or it's federal? Which one tends to make the most decisions or decides to promote the most?
It's very layered. There's Switzerland Tourism, and then there are 13 tourism regions. So it's obviously less than we have cantons with 26 cantons. Sometimes these are like exactly the canton borders, and sometimes there are several cantons mixed, lumped together. Those are the 13 tourism regions, and then below that you have like destinations that are also grouped in different ways. You have sometimes small destinations. You have bigger destinations, bigger regions that act as destinations, and at the very end you have not at the end, but on the lowest level, on the most hands-on local level, you have the service providers like hotels, and they all make marketing decisions and all work with each other. So like a hotel can work directly with us, a region can work directly with us, or a destination can work directly with us. A hotel can work with a region, and so on. So it's really an ecosystem with a lot of players and a lot of people work in tourism marketing, actually.
How do the numbers vary between summer and winter at the moment? Is it significantly more tourists in one over the other, or between just those two, is it quite well balanced?
It depends a bit on where you're looking at. Obviously, different in the cities or the Alpine regions, but like traditionally, winter is just a big thing with a lot of infrastructure built for winter. So wherever you can do winter sport activities, where you can ski or do all the other things you can do in the winter, these places are usually full hotels are booked during the winter, not like every week, but the holiday seasons. And the effort has been in the last years or decades first it was to promote summer, because this infrastructure exists. There are the hotels, there are the like parking spaces, there are the mountain railways, and it just makes economic sense to use these infrastructures during the summertime and earn money during the summer for the so yeah, in the Alpine regions, the winter numbers are definitely still higher, but then they have caught up a lot during summer. And now what we're trying is to promote the other off seasons, autumn and spring, where the numbers are still quite low. There are lots of hotels that just close down during spring and autumn. So you have this huge giant hotel that's filled during the winter time, maybe almost filled during the summertime, but it just closes for 2 or 3 months during the off seasons, and that's what we want to change.
Do you market Switzerland differently to different regions? So if you know that I'm going to take some, hopefully not stereotypes, but if you take, say for example, China and India, for example, are very interested in cities and the sort of premium side of Switzerland. But then you have the US who are very interested in hiking and outdoor activities. If you see these, do you market Switzerland differently to different regions, or do you try to keep it really consistent?
Both, actually. We have this like core brand positioning, where we say like the campaign, the global brand campaign is called "I Need Switzerland," and that's the same everywhere, with kind of usually a bit the same slogans and visuals. We try to promote Switzerland as a must-visit destination for its natural beauty, for cultural richness, and the likes, high-quality experiences. And then there are a lot of market-specific topics, and that's again the work of the people in the market offices. So, like in Europe, we emphasize sustainable travel, regional food, city breaks, accessibility by train. In North America, it's landscapes that work, like beautiful landscapes, scenic landscapes. Outdoor adventure, US guests are very outdoorsy, hiking, skiing. Then those like iconic train journeys, like the Glacier Express. You mentioned India. There's like kind of there's this Bollywood approach we do in India with scenic beauty and cultural experiences, romantic landscapes and the likes. And then the like Gulf countries, that's also, it's quite the obvious one.
Mm.
Also, not wanting to be stereotypical, but there we promote luxury and cool climate. We advertise the cool Swiss summer in the Gulf countries because people come to Switzerland to cool down.
Is there strategic in terms of which regions that you want to develop further? Maybe you see in Africa, in South Africa, that the economy is growing, people are traveling more. Do you constantly keep an eye on emerging markets to think, these could be an area that we really want to start putting effort into to attract people?
Yeah, we kind of experiment with new markets from time to time. There are tiers within the markets, like I forget the exact numbers, but they're like priority markets, and that are very important to us, that provide a certain number of overnights with their guests, where we oftentimes have like more than one office, and we just like have the more standard markets where there's just like maybe one office in the capital. And then we have what we did in past few years is open up so-called antennas, where there's like for the sake of experimenting or trying a market out, just one person in this market for a limited time, maybe 3 or 4 years, and we start doing activities there and kind of measure how it works. And sometimes we close them because it's a market that's hard to develop, or we notice like this is not really a match with Switzerland, because we can't just work all possible markets. We have to be efficient somewhat. And sometimes it works very well. We tried Portugal for a few years, and it worked very well. So we now included Portugal to our main markets. I think together with Spain, we work this market now. We also have like periodically tried, not with people being there exactly, not with opening an office, but we also have tried like single marketing measures in Africa. So we always try to test the markets. Yes.
How do you tackle language? So you would, I guess, you've got the 4 languages, or 3 languages, I suppose, internationally for Switzerland. Do you have marketing campaigns in each of them to connect to their relevant countries that speak that language? Or is it very English based when you are promoting Switzerland internationally?
It's a bit both. Of course, English is the main language. We just like changed our whole brand design. We worked with, even our brand was Switzerland Tourism in translated to the respective language of the market, and now it's just Switzerland. We use the brand Switzerland in all the market, not Swiss Tourisme or Schweiz Tourismus anymore. So certainly English also becomes more and more important, but the local work is still often done in the local language, like working with media, working with tour operators, working with local content creators is done in the local languages. And then therefore in the markets we have a mix in our office, mix of usually with Swiss people that work there as expats, and local people like Australian people working for us in Switzerland Tourism in Sydney, together with people from Switzerland.
So how did you land on the new brand, where it's more or less basically just says Switzerland, and that's all it is if you just read it?
Yeah, that's because the old brand, we had this iconic, or some people called it iconic, golden flower, which is basically an Edelweiss flower, a golden one. We had it for, I think, about 30 years. It was very well known, and of course, when we changed the brand, there was criticism. How can you get rid of the flower? But the flower just didn't really work anymore. The flower with the addition Switzerland Tourism, it was like we had, I think, 17 language versions of our brand, because Switzerland Tourism was always in the target market's language. And the flower didn't really work anymore in digital. It was a very complicated brand and didn't really scale for different uses. So we just had to modernize it. And people sometimes don't like when brands get modernized, but after like just 1 year, they realize, oh, it's better. The old one really was dated, and that's what happened now. So it's more like, before it was just a logo, it was a brand, and now it's more like there's a lot that goes into it. It's more like a brand ecosystem, a brand system with lots of details and lots of use cases, how we can use the brand, and it's much more tailored to the future of advertising.
I guess when it comes to modernizing and Switzerland typically don't go together in the same sentence. So I can imagine that you'll have a bit of a reflex when changing. But I think it really suits the ads as well. I mean, they're much more modern ads with Roger Federer. I think the combination of the two fit well. Do you?
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, that's just like, that's what happens usually. You just see a new brand and you think I like the old one better, and then you just over time you realize that there's a reason that it had to be changed. And I also think, like, the first time I saw the new logo, I thought, yeah, maybe does it really have that much identity? But now it's just it grew a lot on me, and then it really integrates well into for example, commercials, and also it works well in print. It works well on digital. So it's a really nice brand to use from a user perspective.
With the exception of the hotel overnights, do you collect any other interesting data which helps you sort of inform decisions or inform how Switzerland tourism is going?
Yeah, we are conducting this large market survey that's called Tourism Monitor, Swiss Tourism Monitor. I think the intention is to do this every 4 years, and it's really vast. I mean, lots of questions are asked there, and of course you could still always ask more, but then people probably would just not do it anymore. So we have to prioritize what we really want to know. And we usually do this, it's like with thousands of people from all markets, of course, because we get very market specific information, like what's the demographic of guests from India, and what are they interested in, things like that. And also certain, like, we do not, like, the hotel overnights obviously don't help us at all to track movement. If one person stays at a hotel for 2 nights and at another hotel for 3 nights, it's just like the same thing as 2 different people staying in these hotels. We don't have like profiles on how people are moving. We also don't really have this with the studies because that's not what we're focusing on, but we get much more insight into like the interest of people, and at least we can find out, are people visiting several places or just one place, for how long are they in Switzerland, all numbers that vary a lot from market to market. So yeah, we do this every 4 years. It's a really big study, and we had to postpone it during COVID, and the new numbers will be out just in about 1 or 2 weeks. So we're recording this a bit too early, I don't have fresh numbers yet. The lots of the data we have at the moment is from 2017, so quite a bit old because of COVID. But we are expecting a lot of new insights in the next few weeks.
Do you expect the numbers to, I guess you've got this huge COVID block in the middle, which I guess really skews your numbers, but are you expecting numbers to be very different from 4 years ago? Or no, from 2017, so from 7 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. That's why we postponed it, because if we did the study during COVID, it would just make no sense to compare the data afterwards. And now, as things have normalized, it makes sense to do this study again so we can compare to the 2017 numbers. Well, that's just there's a lot of change in details. It's not like we do have the overnight numbers. We do see if more people come to Switzerland. We do also know from which markets people come, but all the details like changing interests and changing demographics, that's what's interesting, and what also again depends on the markets, because that's pretty stable with some markets, and sometimes there are huge changes with other markets like China and India again, where in both markets years ago we just have like we had more like older people that traveled in big groups, were not very experienced in traveling, so they needed a lot of assistance from tour operators, and especially in India this has changed a lot. So now we have like very adventurous people, young people visiting Switzerland, that travel individually or in rather small groups, and such market shifts happen from time to time, and the marketing surveys help us get further insights into such shifts.
Do you, with the data that you collect, do you get an idea of what's important to tourists? Like you said earlier that there's a rise in popularity with sustainability, and that's where things like the wild camping and the focus on public transport comes from. Do you collect this information in terms of what is interesting to tourists now?
Yes, very much so. That's it. Can think of the main driver for these studies is to find out what people are interested in. So what are the drivers for traveling Europe, for traveling Switzerland, where we have to improve. So for example, like one of the main travel drivers for Europe is food. People travel, as is not the top, is maybe number 3, travel for like culinary experiences, and that's, for example, one point where Switzerland is not on top of the list. We are not extremely well known for good food.
Well, you've got some big competition.
Yeah, exactly. France, Italy. It's hard to hard to compete there. But we see this data, and then we try to adapt. We now did this campaign where we are promoting wine tourism, because you have these wine regions like the Napa Valley in US, and you have these wine regions in Italy and France that are not just origins of good wine, maybe food, but also popular travel destinations. People go there. People go to Tuscany for like a week of vacation. And yeah, you being in Switzerland, I think you've been to Lausanne and seen the Lavaux region at Lake Geneva, and it's just a beautiful place when you have nice weather and the rays of the sun like caressing the vineyards. And what we're doing now is promote these regions, which hasn't really been done before in Switzerland, as travel destinations. Yeah, and that's something that there's insight from these market studies going into these decisions, of course.
I have one last One last question for you. So for residents of Switzerland, myself included, I mean, I haven't been to a lot of the big ticket places on the top 3 list. I haven't been to Zermatt, A, because it's quite far away from Zurich, but also B, it's very expensive and very crowded. And that also goes for Jungfraujoch. I haven't done that because I see the price and I'm just like, oh boy.
Fair enough.
And very, very busy. So what, based on the numbers that you have or what you've seen, or even just as a Swiss citizen for a long time or for your whole life, when are the best times to visit these very popular places when there'll be less people, but still the weather promotes a really nice holiday?
It depends a bit. It also depends on which guests are visiting these places, because not all markets travel at the same time. So sometimes in some places that are especially like, you can make a specific example, but you have people at times you wouldn't expect from Swiss holidays. But it's, I think, important to remember that also in this case, also in Zermatt, also on Jungfraujoch, is still always a lot of Swiss people also going there. So it's maybe not 50% on the Jungfraujoch, but you always find a lot of Swiss people in Zermatt. And so you kind of can look at when are Swiss people traveling. So if you don't like crowds, maybe just don't go on a nice summer holiday weekend. But there are lots of times, like we do have these popular hotspots, of course, I wouldn't want to deny that. But there's not one destination in Switzerland, not a single destination that's just crowded every day, all day. In fact, I've been to Zermatt and Interlaken many times, and oftentimes I don't really see many people, also with nice weather. And it also depends a bit on the time of the day, because when there are crowds, they usually made up of day trip guests, often from Switzerland, but also like people I talked about, like Americans that have their hotel in Zurich and just make a day trip to Zermatt. They don't arrive very early. They don't stay for very long. There are those people that don't want to dive deep. They just want to have their pictures and their selfies and they leave. So they have to return to their hotel. So good recommendation I would give is to be at those places in the mornings and in the evenings. Oftentimes these are very beautiful times of the day. I just drove to Gstaad this weekend early in the morning, and there was just mist everywhere and like the sun rays coming through the mountains. It was just beautiful. So avoid maybe early afternoons. And because so many people are just day tripping, I mean, if you have the time and the means, just go to those places and stay in a hotel so you can get up early and also enjoy Zermatt, for example, during the evening, maybe eat something. You won't have crowds in the evenings and in the mornings. And yeah, that's an advice I would give probably.
Well, Markus, thank you very much for your time. I have really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.